How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Talk4 Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And wow, what an incredible episode we've got coming up. This is going to be absolutely awesome. I can't wait to share it with you. And just want to say that episodes like this and guests like this one are made possible by the incredible subscriber base who keep coming back, watching the episodes and liking, subscribing, and following and rating. It makes a massive difference and really helps me push this podcast to the true vision I have for it in the future. Every little helps. So going to ask you if you can do the same today. If you're new here, please do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, leave a rating. And yeah, it's going to help out a load. This podcast is just going to keep getting better. And I can't wait to show you guys episodes in future. And for now, this one right here. Enjoy. How's it going, guys? Welcome to episode 127 of Talk4, the Quickfire podcast, where we ask 4 great questions to unique and interesting people. Behind the mic today is your host, Skupien. That's me. And oh boy, let me introduce our very special guest for today, Scott Intake Kartvedt. Man, have we got a bit of history to unpack in this one. But dude, how's it going today? Welcome to the show, and just can't wait to dig into this with you. Thanks for making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely, Louis. It's great to be on the show. I look forward to talking about the great flight that we had. It was absolutely unbelievable. And the work that you did on the video is just incredible. It's great to be with you and your listeners.
I appreciate it, man. But all I can say is I mounted a few cameras in a jet, sat in the back seat, and you did all of that. So if it looked great, looked awesome and wowed a lot of people, then hats off to you and to the Patriots. But I just said to you a minute ago before we got on here, quite funny, literally the most kind of cartoony, Hollywoody sounding thing. But the last time I saw you, you literally were flying off into the sunset in an F-39 at Salinas. I think that's just hilarious. And then I didn't see you after that. So life's been good since then. If we're kind of going forward out of the video, anyone going on, how's it going?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going great. I tell you what, we were remarking on each other's passion for aviation, which you can see in the background of both of on the walls behind us. And these two guys behind me are my 2 boys, so I've been really busy with them. They are both Navy pilots. They're both flying the F-18. I just drove 2.5 days moving my youngest son from the advanced jet training base in Texas to his F-18 training squadron in Lemoore, California. And my oldest son just left on deployment on the USS Carl Vinson. So
wow,
I've tried to be super dad, moving them around the country and getting their naval aviation careers kicked off. And to tell you the truth, I'm more proud of them than anything I have ever done.
Oh my God, that is amazing. I had no idea. I got to ask before we get into this podcast, though, just on that subject, is anyone having a sniff at the Blue Angels yet? Is that on the cards?
No, it's not in the cards yet. They're still pretty early in their careers, but they certainly appreciate the Blues like so many people do. So we'll see what happens. They've got to get through their first deployments, their first fleet squadron. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't think of a better dad to be the mentor for those young lads there. And hats off to them. If they listen to this, thanks for your service, and you're doing a great thing. I can't wait to see and hear more. We need to connect with them on social media. But all right, man. So look, this one's about you, and I just think if I learned just a few things from being with the Patriots and spending time around you, it's just that your career is absolutely remarkable, man. I just want to hear all about it. But we always start off with a kind of an elevator pitch, like a quick one of just who's Intake, what's he done, what's he doing now kind of a thing. So 30, 60 seconds roughly, just gone up to the bar, just met someone, and you got to give him the pitch. Let's have an intro into the life of you then.
I would just say that I'm a professional pilot. I had the opportunity in my life to do a number of things, and it's all because I just say yes. And I say yes to opportunity, and I walk through the door of opportunity. And because of that, I have been able to fly F-18s, went to Iraq 3 times, Afghanistan twice, flew with the U.S. Navy Blue Angels. I fly with the Patriots Jet Team, currently a commercial airline pilot with United Airlines. And I got the opportunity to fly as a stunt pilot in Maverick. And I was the aviation safety supervisor on Mission Impossible 8. And all of those incredible opportunities I have had is because I've said yes, just like talking to you and your listeners. You never know what's going to happen on the other side once you walk through the door. And I have been very fortunate.
So true. And man, it's an amazing career. And all right, let's get into it then. So the first thing I like to really go into with people on this podcast is just I find backstories and where passion comes from so interesting. So if you give us a bit of that backstory, just how you got into aviation, what was the motivation there? And really, was it kind of a you thing? Was it a family thing? What got you into it? Was there an initial spark? Were you one of the Top Gun boys? Like, walk me through it. What's the intake backstory?
No, so I think the backstory actually comes down to just being an adrenaline junkie. My parents were always very open to allowing us to experience things. So I rode motocross when I was a kid. We went to the desert and rode motorcycles all the time and desert races. We water skiing, snow skiing, anything that involves speed. And to be fair, I know there's a lot of aviation enthusiasts that are listening and they saw their first plane and thought, I'm going to do that. I actually saw the movie Top Gun and with a bunch of friends in high school and decided, we want to do that. And my best friend and I decided to pursue that dream. And it worked out for both of us. Which was really quite fortunate because that's a thin, you have to have a lot of luck and a lot of timing to become a fighter pilot in the United States Air Force or the Navy. But, and then once I started flying, certainly the bug was there. As you saw in the Patriots, we fly with the Patriot. It's just for the love of the game. In the intensity of it and the passion for it in the being part of a team. So, but if I had to root it down to one thing, Louis, it would absolutely be adrenaline and the excitement and the thrill of speed.
Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean when you say that, man, because the first time I ever got out in a jet that wasn't a commercial thing, looking out a tiny glass window on the side, was with Wiz Buckley out in Miami flying the L-39 for the first time. And quite funny, I was terrified, dude. I'm scared of heights. I think I'm scared of heights at least, but I've seemed to have picked up this really keen passion for going up super high and being upside down. I don't know how that works, but I certainly know that it's a bug and I've got it. I mean, look at my damn wall. That's what happens. What was your first flight? What was the first time you went upside down and stuff?
What's really interesting about that, Louis, is I actually have a fear of heights. If I have to get up and clean the gutters on the house or climb up on a ladder, I honestly, people get to say, how can you be a pilot if you're afraid of heights? And there's something about being enclosed in the canopy of a fighter where there is no height.
Yeah.
So I can't explain that either, but I very much have a fear of heights, but I have no problem flying, 200 feet over the ground, upside down and inverted with you. That's not scary to me at all. So it's an interesting dichotomy of fears and thrill, if you will.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I've never had an explanation for that. So I've kind of been on this, internal journey of, okay, am I afraid of heights or am I just talking myself into this or am I just so keen to do it? But yeah, it's one of those things. It's very interesting. But the first time, even with you, when we were flying, I remember this when we first took off. That first time that we go upside down and do a roll or something when we did the G-warm, that one always feels a bit like but and I've been flying a few different things and experienced that so much. Right. But that first one, after a bit of time out, always is like, oh my God. But then when you get to the end of like the practice demo and stuff, it's just like, yeah, here we go again kind of thing. It's just, yeah, here we are now looking up at the world again. It feels pretty normal. So I don't know. I'd like someone to dig into that and figure out what the kind of correlation is there between a fear of heights and just not feeling scared being in a fighter. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's just too movie-like looking up at the world. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think if you're enclosed, to me, the canopy and being on the front pointy end of a fighter jet, it's just not that big a deal. So I can't explain it. The only time that I was ever afraid of heights in an airplane, we took an F-18 up to 54,900 feet,
Oh my God.
where you could just start to see the curvature of the earth. And at that moment, I very distinctly remember thinking, this is really high, and we should probably get back down, because if something were to go wrong, we would have a problem, especially with our pressurization system. But that was the only time that I have actually ever thought I'm probably higher than I need to be right now.
Yeah, it's hilarious, man. That is staggeringly high. I can't even imagine what it must look like to look down at the world from somewhere like that. I mean, it must make everything down below seem pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah, right. You recognize how small you are and that you're just this dot up in the atmosphere. No kidding. You look up and it would be dark up
Wow.
above us, even though it was daylight. And like I said, you could see the curvature of the earth on the outside.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, this is
Yeah.
just nuts.
Put that into perspective then. So, yeah, take my flight over to the States, for example, Virgin Atlantic. I think it was like maybe 777 or 83 something. How high would you usually go in a commercial jet? And how much higher was that you went in the Hornet?
Some of the commercial jets, we normally fly in the mid to high 30,000 feet, so 35 to 39,000 feet. Some of the private jets can get up into the low 40s. Gulfstreams will cruise up at 45, 46. But there is something about transitioning above 50,000 feet where the atmospheric conditions change, the air density is less, so the airplane is just trying to fly.
Yeah.
And so once we did this zoom climb, so we came down, we got a bunch of speed, we were above the speed of sound, and we pitched up and carried that Mach speed of sound up into 54,900, and you go, this is really, really high. So that last 10,000 feet between 45 and 55,000 was what really got our attention. I mean, we were happy to be up there. It was the highest we'd ever been, but we were happy to come back down for sure.
Amazing. Quick ad break here, guys. Just want to introduce you to Shopify. Shopify is the all-in-one e-commerce platform that runs basically everything I'm doing, from my personal website to my business websites. It truly is a phenomenal system, and I have a way for you guys to get started today for just £1 building your business, whether that's personal brand, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's a blog. It has everything. It has its own app store that can get you basically every feature you could expect from an online store, and it really just works out of a fantastic all-in-one system, which I can only highly recommend enough. And you guys can start for just £1 today. It's an incredible offer. Absolutely amazing. And the link to that is in the bio, or I'll put it up in the tab at the top. I think it'll be top right at the screen for you guys right now. So yeah, guys, check it out. Make sure to get this offer, and yeah, get started. It's fantastic.
Sure.
Amazing. Wow. I mean, I guess some people would either just be completely mesmerized by it, but yeah, I mean, if anything's going to trigger fear of heights, it's probably being there. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's all right, so a bit more on that backstory then. So walk me through the military then. So I one of my favorite videos to watch online and stuff is when the pilots finally find out what they got selected to fly, where they're flying it and stuff, that kind of graduation party, I guess, if you will. I love those videos. They're so fun. So when did you get in? What was your kind of process in there like? When did you find out you were going to fly the Hornet, and how did it all progress?
Well, so the way that the U.S. Navy works is it's a series of tests, if you will, through flight school. And so I went through primary flight training, and about 30% of the pilots coming through primary flight training will have the opportunity to fly fighters. And so the only person that gets kind of guaranteed their number one choice is if you're number one in the class. So I finished primary flight school. I had done well. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life, was learning to fly an airplane in the manner that the Navy wants you to. And so I selected fighters, And then I went down to Texas, went through intermediate and advanced training. And at the time, we still had F-14s, F-18s, S-3s, EA-6B prowlers at the time. And so I knew that I was going to fly some sort of jet off of an aircraft carrier, but I was successful enough in training to graduate actually number 2 in my class, and was able to select F-18s. And then once you're in the F-18 community, in that fighter community, sometimes you'll move around platforms a little bit from F-14 to F-18. I was an F-18 legacy pilot my entire career, 4,000 hours in that airplane. I remember my wife, Lisa, was standing with me, and they announced it as they were presenting my wings of gold, and said, and Lieutenant J.G. Scott Kartvedt will be flying, and you're kind of hanging on bated breath. And they said F-18s out of Jacksonville, Florida, and now you're on your way, and that dream has been achieved.
Yeah. Would there have been a bad? Anything that gets you up high, flying with 2 rocket ships strapped to your back is probably a good outcome. But would there have been kind of a outcome in what you were flying, or did you have kind of an ideal one going in? Was it the Hornet? Would the Tomcat have been a bit of a talk to me about that?
No, ultimately I wanted to either fly. I wanted to fly a strike fighter airplane, a trigger puller, if you will. And so either the F-14, the F-18, or they actually had the A-6 Intruder at the time, which was a bomb dropper. To be honest, I kind of wanted to fly the A-6 Intruder as a bomb pilot. They were going to phase the A-6 out, so most of the A-6 pilots became F-18 pilots. And I thought, well, if I get to fly A-6s, then I'll become a very proficient bomber, and I will eventually make my way to the F-18. But they phased out the A-6 and stopped graduating students into that about 2 months before I graduated. And then so my number one choice was to fly F-18s, and I was fortunate enough to get it.
Nice. And looks like it turned out pretty well then. So, I mean, look, you can see it on the wall. I know a bit about the Blue Angels. I've had former XO on there. I've had Boss Wildridge on there. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. Now, so there's a few Blues on the show now and stuff. And what I've come to realize is that, dude, the Blue Angels are just cream top, man. They are the best, and it's hilarious knowing hearing the story of Tom Trotter from former commander of Top Gun, saying that he was trying to make the Blues, didn't get selected, and that's a guy who was the commander of Top Gun. So
right,
you got to talk me through it then. So how did you become a Blue Angel? Walk me through that process. Did you apply? Did they reach out to you? And when did you find out?
No, so that's a little bit of a misnomer. The Blues won't reach out to you. They may encourage you, like, hey, you should apply, but that doesn't mean that you have been selected. So it's a pretty long process. The application window usually opens in March at the first show, and you announce that you're wanting to apply to the team. You get your work on your application and your recommendations. And then what the team is really about is the personality and the relationships. And do you have the ability to represent the United States Navy as a recruiter? And so you go to a number of shows throughout the year. Once you're an official applicant, you get the opportunity to interact with the team, and you can go to their briefs, and they're getting to know you and you're getting to know them. So it's about a 4-month interview process. And then in June, they'll select finalists. So of the 20 or 30 applicants, they'll pick 5 or 6 that will come down for a finalist week. Then you spend 3 days with the team at the beginning of July. You get to know the team, you get to know their families, they get to know you a little bit better. So it's very relational. And what it really comes down to, Louis, is trust. They need to know that you're the type of person that will hold yourself accountable for your actions. You'll take responsibility from those. And more importantly, that you'll learn from those mistakes, because we make mistakes all the time. But are we willing to learn and improve? And the only way to do that is if we trust each other to perform the best that we can every day, day in and day out.
Mm.
So, and interestingly, I was selected as a finalist in 1998. I didn't make the team that year, but reapplied because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I was selected as a finalist in 1999, and that was the year that I got picked up.
Amazing. Who was the CEO at the time then? Was that a Boss Waldridge era thing, or was that someone after that?
No, it was after Boss Woolridge, and he's an incredible human being. In fact, I just saw him in Pensacola at the end of season show this
Nice.
year. So I saw him about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Just a remarkable man. And so they had selected in 1998, Boss Dom was the boss. And then Boss Driscoll took over in 1999 and 2000. So I served 1 year with Boss Driscoll in 2000 as the number 7 pilot. And then Boss Field, I was with him for 2 years when I was number 6 and number 5 on the team.
Yeah. And so what my understanding was you were number 7, right?
Right. In 2000, I was number 7. So I was the narrator. I did all the VIP flights. And it was kind of a unique position in the Navy because you're the only pilot in the Navy that has 2 F-18s solely dedicated to you, because not only are you the narrator, but you're really the advance man for the team. So you fly out to all the shows one day before everybody else. You
Mm.
make sure all the details of planning are actually in place and ready to execute the show when the team arrives on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really interesting role, and I think the VIP flights. Now, there's something I want to get into because I think that's super interesting, right? So, obviously, the kind of needs of media and sort of public relations and stuff are really kind of evolving at the moment. So, what they're doing right now with the key influencer program, obviously, it's probably a very different picture in what the aim and the goal was from back then, right? So, I got to ask, who were the people that you got to fly? And what were the kind of goals there, I guess, for the media side of things with the Blue Angels? Because I mean, yeah, nowadays there's a lot of sort of, the YouTubers and the hotshot social media people who get to fly and everything like this, and you hear all about them. And if you've got a big following, then that's that. But obviously back then we didn't really have social media so much, and it was only just coming onto the scene. So who were you flying, and what did it kind of look like? What were the objectives?
Well, so the objective is always the same, which is publicity for the military, primarily United States Navy and Marine Corps recruiting effort.
Mm.
And so you would have to be involved in either print media, news media of some sort, or radio. And so those were the kind of people that we flew. Oftentimes you could fly an NFL player or a coach that would draw more media,
Mm.
and or an actor or actress, somebody that is going to bring news outlets to the team. And then more importantly, you want to select people that will promote the United States Navy, the armed forces, and have a reach. And hopefully young men and women will see those video clips on the news in the newspaper, and they'll read them and they'll be inspired and perhaps join our armed forces.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the I would say old media, right? Print
Yeah.
media, news media, radio, and now it is migrating into social media because that's the platform of choice. But what you said, something very key, and I don't know if you said it. What's the outreach? How many followers do they have? Is it in the demographic that is important? That we're trying to reach out to inspire people to support the military, and more importantly, join the military.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think that's the way to do it. And I think, obviously I've tried many times, kind of reaching out with them, and I'm maybe something on the cards there and everything, but I know that everyone wants to fly with the Blue Angels one day and stuff. So if you had any advice for people on how they could make that happen one day, if it's like a goal someone could set for it to happen one day, to be, I don't know, qualify for that, what would you say to them as to kind of like, here's what you should try and go for right now and build early on to, even be on the lineup for potentially making it happen?
Well, at the time you had to have press credentials. So because of social media, I don't know if you have to have official press credentials, but you certainly have to have a following in the demographic, young men and women, think of ages 13 to 30. And if you have an outreach to those type of people and you can bring positive press to the U.S. Armed Forces, then you have a higher probability than somebody that just wants to go fly in a jet.
Yeah.
That's not what the team is about. That's not what those media rides are about. It's all about national type of attention that will draw the focus to our armed forces.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good crash course. Kind of bit of info there for anyone listening in. And I think, the kind of mindset towards it is, how can I benefit what their mission is? So understand the mission. But I think that goes for anything, right? I like to put actionable info into the podcast where I can, so people leave with something interesting to ponder over or think about too. But I think that goes for anyone. So, if you want to make an opportunity happen, or if you're shooting for something, like even with the Patriots, for example, it's just understanding what the needs are of that person or that team or that, organization, right? And trying to figure out how you can benefit them and apply yourself to their mission rather than trying to kind of make them fit your narrative. Do you agree with that? What are your kind of thoughts on, making collaborations happen and stuff in the business world?
Well, it's interesting, and that's kind of the second pillar. I talked about saying yes and walking through the door of opportunity, because so many people say, no, I can't do that. I'd never be allowed to do that. The second pillar is just ask, right? I was never going to be a Blue Angel unless I asked and looked into it and applied and did the work. And, if you think you're going to join the Blue Angels and it's going to be all about you, they're not going to pick you, because it's not about you. It's about representing 400,000 sailors. It's about representing 186,000 Marines in a manner that has honor, courage, commitment, integrity, character, principles, and highlighting all of those things that our military represents. So you made a very great point, Louis, when you said, look, it's shared. If you're trying to make it about yourself, that's just not going to work out well for you. If you're trying to make it out for a greater purpose and a greater cause, and you can do that together, then it's a win. It's a win for everybody.
Yeah. Talk to me more about this, say yes to opportunities thing then, because it's a really nice principle and it sounds great, but I feel like we need to kind of dig into it a bit just to kind of figure out exactly what that means really then. So, if we look at this sort of principle of, being a yes person and saying yes to opportunities and stuff, how do you actually apply that into your life? Is it literally just a case of anyone comes up to you asking you to do something, you got to say yes to it? But how do you sort of manage that? What's too much? And, just kind of walk me through, I guess, what your philosophy is there with that.
Well, yeah, so I do a fair amount of corporate training and keynote speeches, and the say yes piece resonates with a lot of people. But what I've found is people that are stagnant in their careers. And the most example I could give in any industry, if your company says, hey, we need somebody to move to Canada to stand up this division, people will say, no, I can't do that. I don't want to move. Or there's always a reason why they can't, instead of recognizing that this could be an incredible opportunity and I will grow myself personally. I'll grow myself professionally. I'm going to meet new people. I'm going to grow my network. And so I'll take that chance. So saying yes is also about taking chances, and it doesn't always work out. Right. But if you never take that chance by saying yes, then it's you're going to get stuck where you are. And so, anytime that when I moved through the military, people would say, oh, Scott, you got to take a break. Yeah. You need to take less of a job so that you can spend some time with family. You've been on deployment. And that never entered my mind, because I took jobs that I found were exciting, held my passion that I would want to pour myself into. And because of that, we moved 14 times in 22 years. And people think, gosh, that's crazy. I wanted my kids to stay in the same school. Yeah. And so when you talk about risk, Louis, my kids never went to the same school for 2 years in a row, and it was hard on them.
Mm,
But now that they are both out of college and very successful, what they found is that they have this incredible network because everywhere we lived, especially when they were older, junior high, high school, they met a lot of different people. And because of social media, they're still engaged with those people. And so all they did, although it was hard to go into a new school, they expanded their horizons. They got to surf in Hawaii, they got to ski in Colorado. And so those opportunities,
mm.
even though they didn't know what was happening at the time, have come to fruition and made them the people that they are today.
I love it. Gotta ask then, what's one of the best thing you've ever said yes to? And don't say it was being modeled for the Blue Angels action figure.
Thank you for calling it an action
I
figure
know,
and not a
brownie
doll.
points, right?
And so, I've never been asked that question. So, but the first thing that popped into mind was I was at United Airlines. I had retired from the Navy. And because of my experience, especially as number seven, because we were talking about that earlier, I got asked to run United Airlines 777 flight demonstration team. And they said, "Hey, will you run this for us? We fly out in San Francisco Fleet Week." And I said, "Yes, I'll run that," because I had a background in it and I had experience in it. That one single yes led to meeting the Patriot Jet Team. And when they said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody, would you be interested?" And I said, "Yes." And I had to go out and I had to meet the team and I had to fly with the team. And they asked me to be part of the team. And then Randy Howell, who I'm sure many of your listeners know, who owns a Patriot Jet Team, won the cinematography contract for Top Gun. And Randy said, "Gosh, based on your combat experience, would you be willing to train the actors and actresses?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And then when they needed a stunt pilot to fly the final fight scene, and Randy and I trust each other implicitly with our flying capabilities, he said, "Will you be the stunt pilot with me?" And I said, "Yes." And so, how did I get to be a stunt pilot in Maverick? Because I said yes when United Airlines asked me to be their flight demonstration lead, and that was an administrative job. I don't fly the 777 in the demonstration. I'm simply the number seven organizer to make sure that that team is safe, well trained, and ready to go. But because I said yes to that, I ended up as a stunt pilot in Maverick. That's the cascading effect of walking through the door of opportunity.
I love that. That's so powerful. And my God, I really agree with you there as well, because I've just found in my life, sometimes I look back at how things came about. And if you trace back decisions or like things that have happened that you're really grateful for, and you go and look at just like where you are now and the things that you're doing, and you go back and you think, what's led to this, right? Like, what decision's gone here? And then you go back further and further, and the more crazy it seems that you're here, right? It's like, I think they call it the butterfly
Right.
effect, where, you know, butterfly flaps its wings back in the past and like the whole world is different. I feel that. It's the same thing, isn't it? But I think you know, you have no control over that, do you? Like, you don't necessarily have control over what's going to turn out and how things are going to go, because you can't see what path it's going to go down, but you can always be on the right side of decision making and make the smartest choice and what you at least perceive to be the most positive choice at any given moment, right? I mean, how do you affect that, in your opinion? Like, what's your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question also. And so not all of my decisions in my life have been great decisions, but you learn from all of them,
Mm.
right? That's the personal debrief, the professional debrief. And am I willing to learn and overcome the challenges that I have faced? Am I willing to be resilient and keep taking one step forward? And, I do some work with veterans. And I had a really profound experience one day with Lance Corporal Cody Hill, who had been blown up, and he had been burnt very, very badly. And just to describe that to your listeners, I mean, I'll say melted is the way that he looked. Yikes. And I saw him at Brooks Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. And I want to be positive around them, right? But underneath that burnt exterior is still a human being. And I went up, Lance Corporal Hill, great to meet you. How are you doing today? And he said, I'm doing great. And I said, oh, yeah, why is that? And he said, I walked 17 steps today, and I only walked 16 yesterday.
Love that.
And that, I mean, I have goosebumps on my arms right now, because he was measuring his success literally in steps, but he never stopped trying to take another step and go a little bit further. And in that moment, you can learn so much, right? He had this horrific setback in his life, but continued to take one step forward. So that's resilience to a T to me. And you can have things go bad, and every human being has things go bad in their lives. But do you reach out for help? Do you ask for help? Do you continue to take a step forward and believe in yourself that you can do it? Are you willing to make changes, sometimes hard changes? And so I think all of that is important.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I think someone, I don't know if you know him or not, maybe you've heard of him and stuff. Someone I had on a long time ago now, actually, was a Kegan Gill, call sign Smurf. And he, listeners and stuff, they hear the stats, and they hear the facts around the situation and stuff. And they can obviously gasp and go like, wow, that's incredible. But you did what he did, so you understand the gravity of it. But he ejected at the speed of sound going down towards the ocean, and landed in the Pacific, and froze basically, and was an inch from passing away the whole time, and just clawed through it. And he was telling me on the podcast back then, I listen back to it sometimes whenever I need a kick up the butt basically, but he was like, every day it was just like wiggling a finger or something, just 1% every day. And guys like that, my God, that's what this whole podcast is about, dude. It's about stories like that, and just showing people that it could be a lot worse, and B, you got to take life by the balls, really, and every moment is special and important. So I think that's something I want people to come away from this with, for sure. And yeah, man. So like Maverick is awesome and stuff, but we've got to clarify it then. So what exactly did you do there? So you trained the pilots, but I know that you did the flying at the end, right? The F-14 and the Su-57. Right. What was you? What wasn't you? What was CGI? What wasn't? So just, walk me through it.
So all of the flying is real in that movie. All of the F-18 flying was performed by active duty Navy and Marine Corps pilots. The part that Randy and I flew in the summer of 2019 was that final fight scene. So when Maverick and Rooster steal the Tomcat and they fly back to the ship through the canyons and fight in the airplanes, all that flying is real, but the CGI is the machine guns. And, we weren't literally shooting each other down and ejecting out of airplanes.
Oh, that's a shame.
All of the canyon runs was just intense. I mean, I've been to combat 5 times on 5 different deployments in 2 different countries. I've flown over 750 air shows with the Blue Angels and the Patriots. But honestly, the most intense flying that I have done was filming Maverick. It was very low to the ground, very close proximity to other planes. We were flying under helicopters. We were flying extremely close to the Phenom jet that had the Sure Shot camera. We had to be on our game to the highest level of compartmentalization and intensity to get those scenes. And sometimes we wouldn't get it, and we'd have to turn around and go back and film it again. Yeah. But on each of those turnarounds, we would debrief and figure out what we needed to do different, which is where that trust piece comes in. Kevin LaRosa is an incredible helicopter pilot, and he was the one that was doing a lot of the flying in the camera ship. and the trust that we had to have with the camera airplanes and helicopters was remarkable. But you do that through the debriefing. So it was incredible flying. All the flying is real. And I can say that because I was there, and it was an awesome experience to be a part of.
I find it's really hilarious how, yeah, we talk about that just a moment ago, how sort of one thing before then leads to this. But I spent so long trying to figure out who was the pilot of the Su-57. And I was like, this guy's cool. I want to get him on the podcast and stuff. And I could never find out who it was and stuff. And somehow I stumbled onto them. So I love how it works, right?
Yeah, because you said yes. And you asked and you wanted to learn, right? And you kept pushing to figure it out. So, yeah, that's right.
Hilarious. How's it going, guys? Just want to really quickly introduce you to a brand called Aviate. Aviate are an aviation-inspired watch company that create incredible commemorations for legendary aircraft and new aircraft too, doing epic projects right now, making these fantastic watches that represent different things. And I'm delighted to be working with them. I have some of their watches. They've sent a few out. They're fantastic. And I've got a very special 20% off discount code for you off a full priced watch. So guys, I'm going to put it on the screen now. So go and grab yourself a very cool watch. They're really awesome. And if you can't find the link on the screen right now, they'll be in the description too. So guys, go and use that code and see you there. Hilarious. All right, well, look, one of my favorite stories that I've heard about you that I just want you to go over is okay, so the short version, which I really want you to expand upon, is Intake, the only aviator who nearly hit a whale. So come on, you got to tell us that story, man.
So we were filming out over off the coast of Camarillo, California, where we did the overwater scenes for Maverick. And we were low to the ground. And for your listeners, flying in the canyon, although it looks high risk, which it is, but we mitigate that risk through safety measures. But you have the depth perception. Out over the water, you don't know if you're 20 feet off the water or 100 feet off the water. And when you're that low, you're not necessarily looking at your instruments, but your depth perception is distorted. And so I was chasing Randy one day as we're kind of weaving back and forth to get those shots over the water. And this, we were pretty low, and this blue whale breached. And Randy said, "Hey, Intake, did you see the whale?" I said, "See the whale? I almost hit the whale," which is a joke. I mean, we were close, and it certainly got our attention. But they don't breach more than 8 to 10 feet out of the water. But the joke was, "Hey, how did Intake die?" "Oh, he hit a whale." "I didn't know he had a boat." "No, he was in a plane." But that was a very memorable moment for he and I when we were out off the coast of California filming those scenes.
Gosh, that's just brilliant, man. Any others like that? I mean, you must have so many stories from doing all of that, but anything else? I mean, like, what are the best memories from filming all of that? Because I think, you look back at it, you say it was insanely hard, right? But when I think back to the things I've done that were insanely hard, they're the best memories. So, what are the best moments from all of that filming and the work that you did there?
Yeah, so the canyon scenes, you get into the canyon the first time and you're filming it, and we would fly 3 times a day, and we were out in Chico, where we were doing the canyon filming. It's the middle fork of the Feather River. It's got the big granite walls and the waterfall, and all of that is spectacular. But the more comfortable you get with the terrain and the turns and how you're going to make the turn and where the planes are going to be. So just in the course of that 7 days, we would get lower and closer with the planes, and lower and closer. And we developed the trust between everybody on the team. And so they would show us a 2-dimensional cartoon image, kind of what they wanted it to look like. We would walk through it with the camera crews. Everybody was very professional. We would go through our communications so that we knew what the communications were supposed to be. We had our safety communication in the event something went sideways. And then we would go out and execute it and make that happen. And if anything went wrong, we would knock it off, regroup, have a conversation, and then reset to get the shot.
I think there's a few things to be taken from that too then. So debrief, right? Like the Blues, I know how big they are in that, and it's something you guys have carried over to the Patriots too. So I got to ask, I like asking this question, and I feel like we always get a little bit more closer to the true answer of it each time I ask it to people and stuff. But what makes a great debrief? You know, where do you start? Where do you end? And what components would a good debrief need as a skeleton structure to kind of copy and paste into anywhere? So is that like okay, you know, accountability thing first, then you go into this. So, you know, how can people benefit from it basically? And you know, not just aviation.
So you brought up a great point. Anytime the Blue Angels brief or debrief, and to include the Patriots, we always shake hands beforehand and we always shake hands after. And what that does is it lets you know that everything in between those handshakes is just professional. It's not personal. And so we start with the handshake, and then we say thank you by making a positive statement. Hey, it was great to fly with you today, right? That sets the tone that it's a positive and learning environment. And then we use personal pronouns, because if you're using personal pronouns, I'll take a safety for this. And a safety is any deviation from the standard that you set for yourself and for your organization. Right. And when you use the personal pronouns, if I say, hey, I made a mistake, I'm accountable for it, you can trust me to improve. And that's really important, because so many leaders use the we could have done better, we were over budget, we were behind timeline. But when I use that plural pronoun, I'm pushing the blame onto you instead of taking the personal blame. So we use the I, me, my pronouns to build the trust. Then we talk about what happened. Then you have to get into why did it happen, so that you can improve the organization as a whole. Yeah. And then you verify what you learned. What did you do good? Let's keep doing that. Let's figure out what we need to improve upon, and let's work on that. And then the Blues are famous for saying glad to be here, which is that final positive statement. And so it's never personal. It's just professional. And then this is another fascinating thing. When somebody takes the time to debrief you, if I said, hey, Louis, you know, you could have communicated a little bit better and laid out your expectations for me to deliver for you. Most human beings will take that personally, and they'll want to bow up and they'll want to defend why they made the decision that they made. But if I say, hey, Louis, you could have communicated better and managed the expectations to let me know what you expected from me. What I'm really saying is, I believe in you so much that I believe that you can improve. But we never lead with that. But you have to know that when someone is giving you advice, giving you counsel, mentoring you, debriefing you, that what they're saying is, I believe in you so much that I'm going to share my experience with you, because I think that you have the capability to improve. And when you recognize that, you let go of your ego and you're willing to say, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm grateful that you believe in me, and you move on. What you do with that information and whether you do improve is entirely up to you, but I'm sharing that with you from a debrief perspective.
Yeah, it's quite empowering, actually, isn't it? Because it's interesting, because, you know, communication, the way you communicate a message can really alter that outcome and that reception, right, can't it? So, you know, what are some of the good, you know, because the thing is, when you give an example, people relate to the example, but if you could kind of like generalize here a little bit, almost, if you will. So, you know, if you're in a situation where either team business or, you know, like the Patriots or anywhere where you've got someone who's, you know, not getting things quite right, what's the wrong way to approach someone about that and kind of lay it down on them, and what's the right way to do that kind of gets them into a, hey, this is okay, it's just a, family feel, let's improve here kind of thing, rather than that, oh, you're coming for me, that kind of thing.
Well, it's not personal, right? As soon as you make it personal, like you screwed this up, and the body language is physical, and I'm blaming you. I'm not blaming you, right? You screwed up. You made the mistake, whatever it is.
Yeah, it happens.
And so the way that the teams overcome that is I would allow you to acknowledge your mistakes first. If you missed something, then I have the ability to say, oh, and you were also low in this maneuver, you were fast in this maneuver, you were too close, whatever the deviation from the standard is. But we know that, and I'm not telling you you're a horrible person. I'm just telling you that you deviated from the high expectations of the team. And whether you're with the Blue Angels, with the Patriots, or on a combat mission, these were the standards. This is the way that we operate. You deviated from that. So fix it.
Yeah.
Because this is what we expect of members of our organization. And so you may hear that fighter pilot debriefs are brutal debriefs. They seem brutal if you just walk into it, but we're all trying to learn from each other at such an accelerated pace that you learn very quickly in the fighter community or any high-paced organization that's trying to succeed and improve rapidly, that we're learning from each other.
Yeah.
So that we can improve. If you make a mistake, I learn from that mistake, and maybe I won't make the mistake. If I make a mistake and you learn from me, then maybe you won't make that mistake. And together we're improving the way that we execute.
That's great advice, man. I really, really appreciate that. I think a lot of people are going to connect to that too. On that note, debrief. So look, we've got about 10 minutes left or something on here, and I just got to get into it then. So our flight, man, look, what do you think? How was that? I mean, we put the video out there and stuff, but it's a very different thing from watching a video and being in the jet, right? So, walk me through it. I want to hear your debrief on it.
Yeah. So one, anytime you take somebody like yourself that's enthusiastic and they want to participate, that enthusiasm and passion is contagious. And I love sharing my craft and what I have spent my adult career working on and continually trying to get better on. So you had great enthusiasm. We get in, we were talking. I know that you're nervous. I know that you had been in an L-39 before, but you hadn't done this kind of flying. If you'll recall, we took off, and as we were joining, I wanted you to fly so that you could have control of the airplane a little bit, to know that we were flying together. It wasn't me just driving you around and then trying to point things out that you could see. Here's what we're doing here. And you were super receptive to all of that. Which made it very enjoyable for me, because you wanted to learn and experience what it is we did with the Patriots Jet Team. So I thought it was a phenomenal flight, and the video that you put together was awesome. It was fun for me to watch.
Oh, great. I'm so glad to hear. Yeah, it was it was one of those ones. It was an absolute grind to make it, but it was just so worth it. The way it came out was awesome. And one of my favorite, the whole thing was a blur, and it was just crazy cool the whole way through. But your flying was great, dude. But that bit where you let me take control of the jet, that was just so special. And man, I recall all of that. I think you were saying I've got a little bit of natural talent there, I think, or something, right? I appreciate it. It was good fun. I've never touched the throttle before, so when I went out with Wiz, I did a couple of rolls in the loop and stuff by myself, and I've done some aerobatics before, but I've never actually felt the control of the throttle, right? So adjusting that distance, right, trying to keep a natural sort of consistent distance away from the other guys. That was a really interesting experience, and I was surprised. It was very cool. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's interesting, Louis, from a three-dimensional perspective, and the reason that I like to let a passenger fly in formation is we're much farther apart, and you can see the dampening of the controls, right, as the movement, even though we're 20, 30, 40 feet apart, so that when we do take it into a very tight set, 2, 3 feet away, metal to metal, then you can really appreciate, and the controls are constantly moving and it's super intense, but you can't stare at one point. You have to take the entire formation into your field of view for the scan. So by allowing you to fly, then I hope that you could appreciate the precision that the team had once we took it into a show set.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. I couldn't imagine being that close. I would imagine the pressure and stuff would kind of get to you. But again, when you're so worked into it and you have that trust and respect for the people left and right of you, and they have the same for you, then I think that makes it probably a whole lot easier for sure. And no, it was incredible getting to fly that for a minute. It was quite funny though, because obviously you're at the front, you didn't have a mirror to look back or anything, but while we were kind of flying over there, and before you let me fly the jet a bit, I was like, I got my GoPro out of the mount and I was like taking pictures and stuff, and then you were like, all right, Lou, your jet. I was like, oh god. I'm like, what's it gonna take? It was very funny. I scrambled in the back of the jet there, almost dropped the GoPro I think a few times.
That's really funny.
I know.
Yeah, that's really funny.
And then we had a wildly cool time in Salinas, didn't we, man? It's a great experience also seeing and hearing the L-39s from the ground and watching it, right? I'd never heard one kind of whizzing past before, but just the power of it, it's freaking cool. It's really awesome, isn't it? And a great weekend there. I'm glad we got to spend some time, and we have some good memories, don't we?
Yeah, it was a spectacular weekend. And so, the interesting thing about getting to fly with us and getting to know all of the pilots, I'd be curious to know if it changed your perspective on the way that you watch the show, because now you're not looking up at the number 5 jet, you're looking up at intake. Then you're not looking up at the number 2 jet, you're looking at stash.
Yeah.
Like, the human being that is in there, and you had the opportunity to experience what we're doing up there. And so anytime I had the chance to fly with somebody and then they got back on the ground and watched the show, it's a different show because there are human beings in there that are doing that performance. Did you feel that way at all?
Absolutely. Watching that and kind of seeing people, it's like, oh, go on, Randy, or yeah, come on, intake, that kind of a thing. It's very different from just seeing like a load of jets and everything. And and then you watch that and you think, oh, Jesus Christ, intake. There's that one bit we didn't get to do it, but there's that one where the 5 are like flying towards you, and you go right under them.
Right.
And seeing that from the ground, I was like, Jesus Christ, that was so close. Like, there was one of the, I can't remember if it was demo 3 or 2 on the. It was a while ago now, so I'm kind of forgetting some of the details, but maybe on the Saturday, and you went very close, and I was like, oh my god, dude, that was close. And then there was another one where I'm still learning the maneuver names and stuff, but it's the one where there's one jet chasing the other jet up, and then the one stops and the one goes over it, and there was a very, very close one, and everyone, all the Ginger and everyone was like, whoa. So watching that and being connected to the pilots too and knowing them, it's cool. And I think there was a great quote that Matt Jones said as well that's I've kind of connected with a bit too, but I kind of share it around every now and then. I just really like the thought of it. But the more time you spend in the aircraft of the machine, the more you forget it's a machine, and the more they feel like your own wings. And it's the same on the outside too. The more that you know the pilot and see them performing and stuff, the more that's just an extension of you, really, isn't it? It's an interesting philosophy, flying. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and the Salinas show is a great example. We had not flown together in about 3 months, but we went out, we did the practice, we went to Salinas, we got to fly 3 times. And so we started to get more comfortable in the airplanes, right, as our wings are re-sprouting because we hadn't flown in a while. And then fast forward 2 weeks later, we were at San Francisco Fleet Week. And in my humble opinion, we finished the show on Sunday in San Francisco, and the whole team was just happy because everybody was flying to the best of their ability, but we also had the opportunity to take in the fact that we were the ones that got to do it. I mean, we're over San Francisco Bay. We're getting to do things that people only dream of, and just the joy of flight, the joy of camaraderie, the joy of trust, and the joy of putting on a performance for hundreds of thousands of people. We finished and we debriefed, and everyone was just happy. So I think that's a great quote that you said, right? All of our wings were in full flight together.
Man,
that's pretty sweet.
Man, I'd like to round this off by just saying, I'm so proud to have been a part of that and to have flown with you. I mean, I think originally, don't know if I'm allowed to share it or not, but originally I think I was meant to be in the number 4 jet in the slot position. And then on the day I found out, I'm flying with intake. And dude, I was so excited about that. So honestly, as a fan of aviation and flight and jets and all this stuff, it just was the best thing ever from a professional standpoint. You, the team, everyone just was on point. It was an honor to see what the Patriots do, what you do, your history, and today exploring more about that as well. It's clear that you're there's a reason that you were a Blue Angel, and there's a reason that you do what you do, and you're a very high performance person, and it's a great honor and a privilege to have been a part of that in whatever small way it is in the grand scheme of things. So I got to thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's been what a great time.
Thanks, Louis. I appreciate you having me on, and what an opportunity to call you a friend and have had that opportunity, not only just to share that flight, but now several months later, we're on your podcast. And it's great to call you friend. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. Well, that's the 4 questions for today, dude. But at the end, traditionally, we always have a shameless plug moment then. So feel free, take a minute to promote anything you're working on, you want people to take a look at, or just the things that you believe in and want people to go and learn more about.
Yeah, so my website, if you want to learn more about me, is scottkartvedt.com. The book Full Throttle from Blue Angels to Hollywood Stunt Pilot is available on Amazon. There's actually is a pretty good following over in the UK. I sell a handful of books over there. I'm actually in Aviation News being released in December. I got interviewed for Aviation News, and I just appreciate the opportunity. I'm terrible at shameless plugs, but it's interesting that we talked so much about the debrief, because I'm getting ready to write a second book that is specifically dedicated to debriefing and some of the things that we talked about. So thanks for letting me make that shameless plug.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see that, and I'll be in line to grab a copy. And very quickly, the last traditional question that we have on the show now, it's a new tradition, but got to ask, if you found a young 13, 12, 14-year-old intake running around the streets and you had a little moment to just, go back in the past and whisper in his ear, what would you tell a young you?
I would say you can do anything that you want. And if you put your mind to it and apply yourself and do the work, the rewards and the dreams will come to fruition. So keep pushing. And I would say it's all about relationships. Life is all about human being interaction, communication, and relationships. So focus on the people, be kind, be gracious, be giving, and it's amazing what will happen in your life.
So true. Great stuff, Intake. Well, thank you, man, for joining me today for the Talk4 podcast. It's been a pleasure having you on, and cheesy fashion, but I gotta say it, man, glad to be here, dude. Thank you.
I'm glad to be here too. Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Intake. And thank you guys for listening. This was episode 127. If you'd like to listen to the past episodes, go and have a look at the channel. And if you'd like to listen in for those future ones too, there's loads coming up. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. See you in the next one. Fights on.